And after 500 years, the inauguration of the Ram Temple, Tier 2 cities were not only becoming more clean, but they were also becoming greater hubs of entrepreneurship, enterprise. Global companies are building GCCs in India. Ten big things, according to me, that India have managed to do well this year. I actually jotted them out for you. The first big one, of course, and it's absolutely impossible to miss. In fact, the first two, I'll talk about external stability and internal stability. External stability would be managing to crack some sort of a border negotiation with China, which has given us hope for some kind of resolution to the border impasse that had been happening and continuing with China for several years now. That resolution brings us hope that in the new year, even further a resolution will happen in this tussle, in this conflict between India and China. That's a big area of external stability. Internal stability, according to me, would be the inauguration of the Ram Temple. Again, many naysayers had said that, well, when it's inaugurated, there might be internal trouble, there might be internal negativity. Actually, none of that happened. It was one of the biggest things that happened this year. And after 500 years, the inauguration of the Ram Temple was a really big thing which went off peacefully, and I think is a great contribution to India's civilizational status as a nation state. Of course, there are other things that India did well this year. I actually think being able to safely extract Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina had been an old friend of India, and when conflict drew in Bangladesh, and it's a complicated situation, that India was able to extract Sheikh Hasina safely from Bangladesh goes to our credit. Remember, India had suggested to Sheikh Hasina's father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, that he was under threat in Bangladesh, and he actually didn't listen to India's wise counsel, and then of course, very sadly, he was assassinated. There were signs in Bangladesh that people were looking to do grave damage to Sheikh Hasina and her family, and the fact that India assisted in taking her out, I think, is a big success. India must stand by its friends in times of grave peril, and this, I think, is a good thing. Also, defense indigenization. That's another big thing that India managed to do well. We really need to, one of the biggest things that will make us secure is defense indigenization. And the start of, higher volumes of defense exports, missile exports, greater defense indigenization at home. All of this really gives a boost to the idea that one day India will become militarily, as far as arms and armaments are concerned, more secure with its own prowess, with its own indigenous capability, rather than always depending on external sources. We have a long way to go there, but a big beginning has been made, and that's something to be happy about. I think that's four. I have some more on the list. I was very thrilled and that one of the big things that happened and grew this year was this idea that Tier 2 cities were not only becoming more clean, but they were also becoming greater hubs of entrepreneurship, enterprise. The ideas, this year it really seemed that the big ideas did not come from a Delhi or a Mumbai. They actually came from an Indore or a Surat or many other sort of smaller cities, Tier 2 cities, which actually are becoming very interesting hubs of innovation, creativity, and really propelling the India story forward. I have always hoped that the excessive burden that a few big cities have in India should really sort of melt away a little bit and go to very interesting Tier 2 cities. And I think that's beginning to happen, and I'm really enthused about that. Also, Tier 2 cities are showing us the path to higher urban sustainability. If you look at a Indore or a Surat or several other cities, those are the cities that are showing how you can build a great urban population, have creativity, have entrepreneurship, and yet do it more sustainably than a Delhi or Mumbai has managed. So that's again something that I was really happy about. Of course, the big thing, India remained on the growth path. Of course, the global situation has continuously been tough, but even though the global situation has been tough, India has remained one of the highest growing economies in the world, one of the biggest growing economies in the world. Our growth has, of course, slowed from an earlier period, but we remain one of the biggest countries in the world, which is very strongly on a growth path. And we really need that. We need to grow at a particular pace for the next 20, 30, 40 years for us to really lift up a whole range of poor people in our country to a higher economic path. And also remember, we are still only about roughly $3,000 per capita. If we want to really push that per capita income higher, we must be on this growth path. And that we are still steadily on this growth path, even though difficult conditions remain around the world. And of course, the impact of the big wars in Ukraine and Gaza has impacted global growth. We are still on the growth path is a big sign. Also, I think we continue to play the global situation well. Look at India's reaction both to the war in Ukraine and to the war in Gaza. Despite a lot of pressures internationally, I think India has steadily kept its path, held its nerve, as it were, and refused to budge from its own indigenous ideas of where it should stand. It has not easily joined this bloc or that bloc. It has continued on its relatively independent foreign policy stance, which is, I think, definitely a win in this troubled world. We're done with 7 and 3 more then, which I think is very exciting and interesting. Well, the other thing that I thought was very interesting this year is that the GCC story kept on growing. India is becoming a big international hub for innovation, and many global companies are building GCCs in India. I think that process, if it grows steadily will reap great benefits for India in the years to come. And I am quite enthused about the GCC story. I'm also enthused about the EV story. I think we are firmly now on the path to a point where most cars sold in India will be on sustainable fuel. They will be on electricity as fuel. Perhaps some will be in hydrogen, but we are moving away from fossil fuels as far as, of course, of our vehicular population is concerned. And that's something to really cheer. We really need this. We have an air pollution problem. We have to move away from fossil fuels. So that's, again, I think a bit of a victory. And I think steadily you will see in the years to come, more and more people will move towards buying a non-fossil fuel car for their day-to-day activities, both in commercial and in personal. I think that's a big victory. As the year has come to an end, we have seen better and better designs come out. Sometimes people used to think that EVs would be some old-fashioned design, will be boxy, but now we are seeing new companies come up with even sleeker, better designs, which will enthuse people to buy them. So that's another victory. And that's 8 down, 2 more to go. I'm also really enthused by the growth of what I call the D2C segment, the direct-to-consumer segment. I think India has tremendous brands now coming from all parts of the country, cheeses from different parts of India, food stuff from different farms, other items, whether it's, day-to-day use, fabric, leather, all kinds of things. I think there has been a real push in this D2C revolution, aided by technology, of course. So that, for instance, I am buying actually this winter, I'm buying all my apple juice from this one wonderful farm in Tons Valley in Uttarakhand. And I'm getting absolutely no preservative, no sugar apple juice. I'm buying my ghee from another farm deep inside Maharashtra. And within days they arrive at my home in Delhi. So I'm excited about this direct-to-consumer revolution. I think it has great potential to boost businesses, local businesses around the country. And I have one more big thing left, which I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about, as a historian, as an author, I'm excited about how much in India there has been a greater interest than ever before in trying to understand accurate history. I think that's very important. I teach international relations. I'm really enthused to see more and more young people becoming really invested in trying to understand history and, of course, international relations. Remember, these two fields are irretrievably interconnected. More and more people are, in India, especially young people, are enthused about trying to understand their own country, how India looks at itself, its own history, and very importantly, how India looks at the world and how it wants the world to look at us. That's a big victory. And in this, I want to mention, I think we did a good job in tackling this entire Khalistan issue. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of pulls and pressures, a lot of negativity, but I think we held our ground. And that's because a lot of people were explained to in India what the history of this Khalistan movement was, why it was so nefarious, and what was the international connections that were designed to hurt India. This connection is very important. This is not an esoteric hobby kind of thing that people should understand. They should understand because it impacts our country today. So this interest in history connected to international relations is something I think is very, very welcome. And we did a very good job in the whole Khalistani issue mess.